Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Simple Good Podcast. Simple steps to living a significant life, doing good, and pursuing your calling. I'm your host, Chris Marlow. Our first series is 5 anchors to overcoming life's storms. We're so excited to bring special guests to talk about these key topics. This week's guest is Carlos Whittaker, who is a good friend of mine. He is an author and a speaker, lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and we have a really raw conversation about the importance of serving and loving one another and being a good neighbor digitally and also a good neighbor physically. What does it mean to care for those who literally live in our communities? And so hopefully you enjoy this conversation. It's 25 minutes. It's quick. It's a lot of great content. And what I love about it is you can apply the content immediately. Enjoy the conversation. And here's Carlos. Hey everyone, this is Chris Marlow. I'm with my good friend Carlos Whittaker. Carlos is a husband, a father, an author, a speaker, and in his spare time, he somehow manages to make the world care about birds. Carlos, I don't know how you do that, bro, but this is now fascinating and phenomenal. But welcome to the show.
My goal in life is to make people care about the things that Snow White cared about, and I will make the toughest man on the planet suddenly walk outside and see a fledgling robin on the ground and pull out their phone to want to send videos to their spouse.
I'm trying to block you when it comes to birds because I have enough anxiety in life right now, and I'm like, I cannot love a random bird in the middle of Nashville. I'm just kidding.
That's awesome.
Hey, bro, thanks for being here today. We're so excited as we kind of, one of our passions is to help give people tools to kind of navigate life. The 5 Anchor series is just 5 simple but powerful anchors to overcome life storms. And I think the challenge here is, in the midst of the COVID, everyone's facing challenges, but also these anchors will help in the good times and also in the bad times. And so thank you for being with us, man. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Glad to be here.
So Carlos, one of the things, it's kind of fascinating. I remember before we were connected, like 2008, which feels like forever ago at this point.
Yeah, it was.
It was, yeah, literally. And our kids have now grown. It's just great. Life is crazy. But ultimately, like you literally have built this community online and offline. And when I kind of follow your story over the last 10, 12 years, this whole concept of one anothering, which, in the New Testament is talked about again and again and again, the value and the importance of really being a good neighbor and loving one another, caring for one another, serving one another. Man, can you tell me why that is important to you and how you and your wife, Heather, have kind of managed to live a life that seems to be focused on one anothering?
Yeah, I love the way you say that, one anothering. Like it is definitely something that people more so than in 2008, but even in 2008 when I was blogging, that's what I was trying to do. Like I was trying to connect people together in ways that maybe other people weren't. And now, we accelerate 12 years later, and we're more connected than ever than we've ever been before in the history of humanity. Yet there is more lonely people on the planet than there's ever been. There's a loneliness epidemic out there. And so I think the goal of everything that I do is to try to make people, this may come across as, I don't know what it's going to come across sounding like, but I want everyone to feel like I'm their friend. Like I want the whole goal. And I think that's kind of the thing is like, people who've never met me before will introduce me to people like, this is my friend Carlos. And I just think, if more people would go about their day specifically trying to make people feel known, trying to really make people feel known, then we're going to slowly but surely accomplish that goal. And man, that's what I do. I've seen it happen digitally and virtually. And so that's what I do on Instagram every single day still. I'm just trying to connect people, whether, again, it's baby robins, whatever I can use to bring people together. People are so tired of being against each other. People are desperate for a way to be for each other. So I'm here to help people be for each other.
Hey man, I love that. People are tired of being against each other. I know digitally, and it's a question I want to get to a little later, I'm literally exhausted, and like the digital space has created beauty and chaos, right? And so as we think about storms, I want to 2020 for me, and I have a feeling this will connect with you even more so than me. It's like and I was talking to Corey Robertson about this yesterday in a podcast. Like, if we could just restart this year, what would we do? Like, I would pay anything to snap my fingers and like get a redo, but we can't do that. We're here. We're in the midst of this craziness. For you and Heather, and I mean, and I think some connections here. One, we both grew up in California, Northern Cal, Southern Cal. We know, we can debate on what's better, but we won't get into that in this podcast. But man, like, when Kobe died, that just made like a massive impact in my life. I couldn't quite understand why that was such a big deal. But from the Kobe death to COVID, and then where you guys are at in Nashville, I mean, you're talking about, people probably forget that your city just had a massive tornado roll through it a month ago, I think, or 6 weeks ago. And then 2 days ago, you have this massive windstorm. You guys are literally in the midst of the storm. Can you kind of talk about how to overcome storms of life and why one anothering is so key to that? Because you're literally living it out this year.
Yeah, man. Yeah, if there's one thing that I've seen the pandemic do, it is bring people together. And I'm watching. I mean, just yesterday, like, our power's been out for 4 days. It finally turns back on, and the power guys come driving by my house, and I sprint outside and I'm cheering them, thank you, like whatever. You don't know how many people DM'd me saying that they started crying when they saw me do that. Well, why did they start crying? Well, I think the answer's simple, because we're not used to seeing ourselves cheer each other on. We're not used to seeing this digitally. And if there's anything that I think is going to help us sustain whatever storm is coming, it's never to look at. This is now, again, this is just what I do, but I try to not focus on myself, and I try to cheer others on and talk about togetherness and figuring that out. When you're going through a situation in your own life, I mean, there's even, psychologists and therapists will tell you this. Instead of focusing on your problem, focus on how you can help someone else's problem. And I'm telling you, when you start doing that, you start to see your own mental health shift. You start seeing the problems in your life don't seem as dire as they were before, only because you're helping other people with their problems. And, so when you're in the midst of pain, pray for someone else's pain. That's what I try to do. And that's what I've seen really help me weather the storm. And I think it can help a lot of people that are listening.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the challenges we face in kind of Christianity in general, and thankfully there's been so much progress in this conversation, but the mental health side of caring for ourselves and for each other is so critical. And I know you talk about this often, and I feel like we're embracing it more, but can you just kind of dig a little deeper into the importance of mental health? Because it's hard, it seems to me, and let me know if you think I'm off on this, but it's really hard to care for someone else if we don't care for ourselves. And having that balance is key to loving our neighbor, but loving ourselves. How do you guys process that?
Yeah. I mean, mental health is something that has always been here, but we've not always talked about. And I think more and more people are talking about it because more and more people are feeling the weight of the world. And it's my non-professional, non-medical, non-psychiatrist opinion that the reason why mental health issues are rising is because we were not created to exist in the pace of life that we're currently existing in. And so the reason why you're seeing an explosion of anxiety, an explosion of depression, is because our ethos, our souls are still the same souls that God created in the Garden of Eden, right? So, like, He created us to exist in the garden. And if you look at how we're existing now, there's nothing even remotely similar to what He created us to live in. Now, do our souls and will our souls adapt? Absolutely. I mean, yes, like as a species, we're going to adapt, but I don't think that our souls are progressive. Like I don't think that a soul is something that um, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like evolution, right? So like our soul is still our soul, but like we can evolve as humans and what we know and what we do, but our soul is just, it's so tender. I think that if we take a look at the pace of our life, and we really put a magnifying glass to it, we've got to have some major life shifting um, experiences in order for us to gain our mental health back. And honestly, this pandemic has been one of two things. It's been incredible for some people in their mental health, or it's been horrible. And now, why is that? Because it's shown a magnifying glass as to the pace of our life. And so, for me, I honestly think the pandemic has been incredibly helpful for my mental health because it's slowed me down, lowered the volume of life. And so, I just think that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned that like we're not designed to live this kind of pace, and now we have this forced pandemic that's making us stop. As you begin to dream again about getting back out there and like living life post COVID, what are you dreaming about? And how do we not go back to what we were doing that was wreaking havoc on our souls? So, are you processing any balance as you kind of get back out there and deal with life post COVID? Like, how do we do this well or better than we've done it in the last 30 or 40 years where modernization has gone so fast? Like, our souls are weary of keeping up.
Yeah, yeah. I think we look at the pace that Jesus walked at 3 miles an hour. That's how fast a human being walks, and that's how fast his ministry went. That's how fast he did things. And we go back to 3 miles an hour. We go back um, to doing things slowly, to taking everything in at such a relaxed pace. I think that when we lower the volume of life, the volume of God goes up. And I think that we're gonna start hearing from God in ways that we've never heard from Him before. And again, this is forcing us to do that. And so, not that God created this pandemic, not that this is God's doing, but He will use it. And I believe that He's using it in ways that we can, that we're going to be able to, I think recover and do this well in the future. Does that mean like we're not going to have internet? We got to burn our phones, all the things? No, no. But I think we own our phones as opposed to our phones owning us. We own our travel instead of our travel owning us. I think that people are starting to realize that this is the pace we're supposed to be existing in.
Yeah, I love that. It's fascinating. Today, I was supposed to be on a plane heading to Nashville to go to onsite. And the next week, I was going to be leaving onsite to go to our friend Brian's place up in Montana, Refuge, fly fishing. And a little bit of the reason I did that is because we've been so busy, so hectic, and so chaotic. Like everyone, like anyone listening to this feels this real sense of busyness. And I was going to slow down and kind of reimagine what life looks like. And I think part of one another, and to me that's fascinating, is we're going so fast in life that we forget to care for each other along the way because we're kind of trying to build our own empires, and we forget like actually we need to be building each other's empires along the way. And so I think my hope and dream is that we will slow down and reimagine what a better way to live is. And yet we both know that life will get back to some normal and some speed. As you kind of think through and maybe help us think through, how do we do life well and how do we love one another and care for one another, both in the physical and in the digital space? Because the digital is not going away, but we can't let it, we can't let it replace in person. So how do we do this well together, kind of post COVID on the digital side?
Yeah. I think that one of the things that surprised me most about what's happened under the quarantine is, I looked outside in my neighborhood, and before this, I don't know, I'd see one or two joggers a day, right? And now it looks like 1984. You got kids on their bikes, like you got it's like an episode of the Stranger Things. I mean, it literally is fascinating to see everybody together and in community. And I think people are realizing the value of human to human contact. That the digital that what we were trying to recreate digitally, it's just I'm of the opinion, and it's actually not a popular opinion in the church world. A lot of people are like, "Oh, the future of the church is online." And I'm like, I just don't know, man. Like, I think that it's a tool that we can use. But if there's one thing that I'm desperate for, it's to hug somebody. Like, I just
Mm,
want
you're
to
scaring
hug.
me.
I know. I just want to hug people. I can't wait. My daughter had her 18th birthday. And we had friends lined up, that came in their cars and for the birthday, and everyone got out. And it was so weird because like you could tell everyone just wanted a hug, but nobody could. And we're all realizing the value, I think, of face-to-face communication. I think digitally, what we need to use the digital form to do is to accelerate the physical form. So like if
Oh, I love that.
anything digital that we use, if it's accelerating us to meet face to face, then let's do it. And I think that's where we need to get to.
I was talking to my pastor, Justin, yesterday. One of the things we were kind of debating is like, hey, there's new opportunities in the digital space for the local church. But at the end of the day, the thing that we're actually learning too is as much as we love these larger gatherings on Sunday, really what we crave is connection. So how do we reimagine what it means to connect better post-COVID, knowing that Sunday mornings will be back, we'll leverage digital, but at the end of the day, we all want to feel connected and we want to feel like we're known, like you said earlier. So we're on a train in Peru a few years ago in the mountains heading to Machu Picchu. And somehow a conversation sparks up about your next book. And that book is now coming out into the world in just, I think, a few weeks. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and how people can get it and kind of why you wrote it?
Yeah, the book is called Enter Wild, Exchange a Mild and Mundane Faith for Life with an Uncontainable God. And the book is a memoir of me leaving the land of sin management, getting on a boat and stepping off onto the land of miracle signs and wonders, and never wanting to go back to where I was again. It is a book that there's kind of two story arcs. One of the story arcs in the book is my anxiety that I've in my mental illness that I've been battling for years and years and years. And sorry if you keep hearing that. It's just I don't know if you can hear the door.
Nope.
Okay, cool.
No. Hey, we live in the world of Zoom, doors,
Yeah,
kids,
yeah.
dogs. It doesn't
No,
matter anymore.
it's okay. And so one of the main story arcs is my gosh, 15-year journey of trying to get over my anxiety, trying to get over the panic, the physical manifestation of anxiety in my life. And what ended up happening was that I I went to onsite. Like I went to a which is an incredible place, and I talk about that in my last book. And honestly, onsite got me about 60% better. It was awesome, and I was so grateful for onsite doing that for me. But I think what ends up happening is people stop when they get about 60% better with anything in their lives, right? And so it's like, oh well, I don't feel as bad as I did before, so now I'm a little bit better. And we end up making a deal with God. God, if I can just stay here and not have to go back to where I was, even though I'm not at 100, I'll just stick here. Well, what ends up happening is we make a deal, and that's where we end up staying. Well, John 10:10 didn't say, I've come that you may have life and have it to 60%, right? And so like we actually have the full 100% of abundance and life to the full available here. So what the book is doing is it's taking people from 60% to 100%. And I do it in 3 steps. Enter rest, which we've talked about, lowering the volume of life. That's step 1. Step 2 is enter war, which is once you lower the volume of life, the volume of God goes up. He tells you what you have to deal with. Now you enter into war. And I give very practical tools on how we can go into this spiritual warfare, find the freedom that we need. And then from enter war, we step into enter wild. And that's that fullness I was talking about. That's life to the full. That's that Zoe form of fullness that we find in Scripture. And so that's the book, man. It's really just a way for me to take people through 3 steps that I feel like they're going to finally step into abundance.
And I love that. I love, can you imagine reading John 10:10 and how angry we would be if it's like, I've come to give you an okay life.
Yeah, but so many people are living this okay life. Like they're sitting here going like, "Oh, this is what God has for me," and I'm like, "No, like He's got so much more." But the thing is, even that scripture, it's got such negative connotations for so many Christians because it's been abused, right? It's been life to the full means like it's gonna be, like it's gonna be raining money. I've got a nice house. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about in the midst of your trials, in the midst of your trauma, you can still have that fullness there. That's what it's talking about. And I can't wait for more people to experience it.
Yeah, I love that, man. So thankful for the book, Enter Wild. You can pre-order it now on Amazon. It comes out June?
Yep, June 16th.
Yeah, June 16th. That's awesome. Isn't it? It's crazy, like, talking about that maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, and like people have no clue how long it takes to write a book and get it out into the world. And I'm sure you're super excited to actually have that thing coming out into the public and letting it make an impact.
Man, it's been this one's been a long time coming. This is my third book. And it feels like for every book I write, it's taking longer to write it. So I thought it would be the opposite, but it's fine. It just means that I put more blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. We want to get to a couple quick rapid fire questions before we end our conversation. And I can't remember, but are you a fan of the Enneagram or not? And if so, what is your number? I know this already. I had to set you up. Sorry.
That is so good.
I love you.
So here's the deal. I'm not a fan of the Enneagram. Okay. What I'm not a fan of is that every freaking dinner conversation I go to in Nashville, Tennessee always ends up about the freaking Enneagram. I'm like, listen, people, like, stop, and then people start like diagnosing each other like they're all like Enneagram doctors at the table. And I'm just like, makes me want to vomit. But at the end of the day, though, it's a very helpful tool. And I'm a 9. So
nice,
yeah. So people assume I'm a 7, but I'm actually a 9. Well, I think that's a peacemaker or peacekeeper or something like that.
Yeah, you're a peacemaker. Even though you just talked about war, so we'll have to figure this out.
Yeah, peace. Yeah. And so that's what I am. And it's. But no, I'm not a massive fan. Not like the rest of the people in Nashville.
I love it. I'm tired of talking about it though, because every conversation is somehow for like the last 3 years we've talked about the Enneagram. All right, what's your biggest
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Enneagram?
That's it. All right, what's your biggest pet peeve in life right now? Biggest pet peeve?
Oh, no one's asked me this question. My biggest pet peeve in life. It's still the same. It's bad drivers, road ragers. And so actually something comes out in me, and I need to go to do some inner healing on this. Whenever somebody like cuts me off, like just the anger level that comes out of me, Heather's like, I don't ever see this in you. But when that's my pet peeve is like people that can't drive.
That could be just your upbringing in Southern California there. It's just natural. It's a natural part of life.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a SoCal thing.
All right. What's the most recent book you've been reading and you've enjoyed?
Oh my gosh. I like this question because I don't read a lot of books. Which is surprising. I'm an author, but I just don't read a lot of books. But I did just read an entire book, and I'm pretty upset. And so like a whole thing, like I didn't stop halfway through, and it was called The Silent Patient, and it's a novel, and it kept me up until like 4 a.m.
Look how excited you are about it. This is why you love writing books. You're so excited right now.
I know. It kept me up till 4 a.m. because it was one of those books that like I love watching like thrillers on TV or whatever. And this book was written to where like every chapter you're like, no. So if you're looking for a good novel, The Silent Patient.
Awesome. Okay, last question. You have 3 amazing kids.
Yeah.
But who's your favorite? Oh, I'm just kidding.
Favorite,
I'm totally. Are you going to answer?
I was about to answer that question. Because my kids know that my favorite changes on a daily basis on what they do for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, I love you so much. Thank you for joining the show and sharing about your experience and helping us learn what it means to care for one another in a digital and in a physical space. We love what you do. We thank you for serving the world through speaking and writing and all the things you do in Nashville. So, Carlos Whittaker, thank you for joining the Simple Good podcast today.
Love you, Chris Marlow. Thanks for having me.
All right, friends, hopefully you enjoyed that conversation. My prayer and our desire is to give you content that you can apply to life. And we believe this content is so important to, one, living a significant life, but also living a life where you pursue your calling. And in the midst of that, you're able to do good and make the world better. The 5 Anchor series is how each and every one of us can anchor our lives to the most important way to live so we can get through the best of times and the worst of times. And no matter what's happening, we can thrive. And I think Carlos gave us some simple, powerful tools that we can leverage and use immediately so we can help live a better life and love one another and really be present in the midst of all the struggles. So I have a favor. The only way that this podcast works is by you doing a few things. 1, subscribe. to give us a review, an honest review, which typically is 5 stars and more. Okay, an honest review. And also just share it with your friends and family and spread this content. We're so thankful for you. Thank you for taking time to listen, and we can't wait for next week's episode.